Well, by looking at one of the 13F filing on Fintel, it looks like Virtue, another wholesaler, another internalizer, pretty much doing pretty much the same thing than Citadel does with payment for order flow on resale orders, is now disclosing that he doesn't hold any position in AMC. You know, when we go through the document, you can see that as of September 17, that was on last Friday, Virtue Financial LLC had a 100% changed and actually is sitting on 0 shares of AMC. Well, what is really interesting to see is that last disclosed value is $0. So not only they don't have any shares, but it doesn't seem like they are holding any calls or puts. But remember, this is as of June 30th, right? This is as of June, not based on this last quarter. So what is really interesting is Virtue and Citadel are the two main wholesalers when it comes to retail orders. So they are paying brokerage firms to get retail orders and package those and do whatever they want with it. By that I mean they're not actually seeing the lead market, the actual exchange, but instead are sitting somewhere, dark pools, secondary books, whatever you want to call it. And this is one of the reasons why SEC Chairman Gary Gensler said this is a huge conflict of interest, because it gives the ability to these guys to see much more over and actually get ahead, which is another illegal stuff. Now, that aside, the fact that they're actually not holding any AMC shares anymore is not necessarily a good thing. Well, is it a good thing? Well, let me back up. Let's see this in two separate ways, all right? The first thing is the positive way for AMC, meaning, remember when AMC was here around the 70s, Citadel and Virtue and pretty much every other short seller in AMC had significant amount of shares. Citadel was holding pretty much 900,000 shares of AMC before we even ran all the way up to 70. Just to tell you, they were a little bit anticipating this to manage, the risk and to balance the P&L, the profit and loss on the position on AMC. But now that we're sitting on the 44 or the 43, well, the fact that Virtue, for example, it's not holding any shares anymore means they might not be as covered, which makes them a little more vulnerable in terms of exposure to any significant upside on the share price moving forward. Now, the other or the less interesting thing about it is currently the standards of the SEC and the federal agencies on the US markets is if you are short selling any stock, you don't have to disclose that position. You don't have to disclose how much you are shorting that company, which amount, how many shares. There is zero obligations for market participants to do so. So even though you see 0 shares here owned by Virtue, which we know they are short selling or they were short selling, it doesn't tell you that they necessarily covered the entire position. It doesn't tell you how many shares or how much dollar amount they are still sitting on shorting AMC, because that data, that info, it's totally non-existent based on the current structure of reporting from the SEC. So that is the last interesting news, but overall it means there is a change. There is a change in the positive way coming into AMC, especially from the short sellers, because it's costing them too much money. It has been costing them so far billions on P&L, but nobody knows the exact amount it's been costing them in borrow fee rate, because to short you have to borrow and you have to pay for that, right? So moving forward, if for any reason market conditions, market circumstances, gamma squeeze, margin calls based on whatever we see on the market currently and where the S&P 500 is currently sitting, well, or any other black swan event, you can just expect, if we have another significant run, which I think we are setting the stage to have, you can expect those short sellers like virtue or even the big ones, since they are not holding that much shares anymore, to be much more closer to cover, even if it's not the entire short position, but to some extent to cover, which will definitely work not in your favor, because as soon as they start covering, it's help the price shooting up again, and the more the price goes up, the harder it will get for them to maintain, which you have to start covering again, and it's a domino effect which will only end with them on the wrong side of the equation.